Alrighty folks, coming at you guys today with another spreadsheet video. This time we're investigating how OP is Belica really? How overpowered is her insane auto attack scaling right now? When you look at Belica's auto attack scaling versus all the other carries, it's easy to see there's something going on from a numerical standpoint that doesn't quite add up. You look at heroes like Murdock, who, when you go into his abilities and look at his autos, do 59 damage plus 90% of their physical power. Now that is quite a lot of scaling. Murdock used to have 100% physical power scaling prior to this patch, now has 90. You look at other heroes like Twin Blast, who has a similar auto attack style to Belica of multiple projectiles per cycle, and he gets 30 plus 45% of his physical power added to each auto, so again adding up to 90. But then you look at Belica's. Belica's autos do 21 damage plus 75% of her built physical power times 3. That is insane, but I really wanted to dive into the numbers and see how insane that was. So let's hop into the spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is available, linked in the description if you want to come into it and play around in it yourself. I don't foresee many people getting big value out of that, but if you want to, it's there. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Check out some of the other recent spreadsheets we've done, like the health and mana scaling spreadsheet. That one had some good takeaways from it. And come out and hang out with us in the live streams when we're playing Predecessor every evening on YouTube. But let's get right into it. First thing I did is I knew that these numbers don't add up, right? So I knew that in order for this to even be remotely balanced, there had to be a couple drawbacks, and the biggest one was going to be armor. So the first thing I did is try to look at armor. Now, armor, there's not any good formulas available for how armor affects your damage in actuality. So what I had to do is what I was originally intending to do is go in here, do some testing on the steel dummy in the practice arena, knowing his base armor, which I first had to go in as steel, level up to 18 and get his armor rating, which is 110 just from leveling up to level 18 on steel, and then do some testing. We chose Belica, Twin Blast, and Murdock for our testing to look at what is the theoretical damage that the autos do versus what is the actual damage pop-up number that you get when you auto attack that 110 armor steel. So that was the first thing we did, and we came in here and we looked at what is the actual damage dealt versus the theoretical damage from their formulas for their auto attack scaling damage. Of course, these heroes all get different base physical power from leveling up to 18, so we had to level them up to 18 in the practice and record those too. But with those theoretical damage numbers versus actual damage numbers, I was able to look at the difference between how much damage is that armor mitigating. And initially it looked pretty hopeful because regardless of the damage number, I was expecting, okay, obviously lower damage numbers punch through armor worse. So Belica with a theoretical 53 damage and then getting cut only to 20, maybe that's a bigger hit than you're going to see on the higher end. But then looking at the differences, it was kind of marginal. You actually, at this low of a number, got slightly more damage, or I should say less damage mitigated from the armor coming through 53 to 20 than you would even at Murdock's 165 to 56. Being all around that, mitigating 2/3 of the damage, 35% of the damage getting through the armor. So that was interesting. I didn't expect that or them to be so close. So then we went back in and threw Demolisher on all of them so that effectively the steel would have 88 armor because Demolisher ignores 20% of their armor, and steel doesn't have any built armor in this scenario, so it just ignores that 20%, taking him down to 88 armor. And in that case, it was the same kind of story basically, where even though Murdock's theoretical damage is 201 per auto, getting reduced to 82, it's really not that far off. It does mitigate less, about 40% of the damage got through in Murdock's case, whereas only 33% of the damage got through in Belica's case, but that's still not that big of a gap. at least not as big of a gap as I was expecting. Now, as we'll see later, armor does play a massive factor, but initially I looked at this and thought, hey, if it's proportional, if 33% of the damage is getting through, it doesn't matter if that 33% of the damage that gets through is on a small number, on a big number. 33% of 53 times 3 is the same as, if the 53 was added together 3 times and then, was dealt a third of that. So I was hopeful here that the armor wouldn't be that big of an impact, but it ended up being a big impact. If I did more testing on this, or I just straight up had access to the armor formulas, this would have been a lot easier. But in order for me to generate armor formulas and mitigation formulas like that, I would have had to do a ton of testing and do best fit lines of correlation and everything like that. And I didn't want to go that deep into the armor side because that's not what this spreadsheet is about. But here's a little sample of armor. If anyone out there knows what the armor formulas are, because they seem pretty complicated with a combination of flat damage reduction and percent damage reduction, and it's relative to how much the damage number is, let me know. We'll do some more calculations together and we can find out some more stuff, but I was not able to find any sort of armor to damage formulas that I could use. So anyway, that was my initial testing, just to kind of do a preface of this. Then what we went in here and did is we looked at a couple different heroes, really focusing on Belica, Twin Blast, and Murdock were the ones that I investigated more closely because I feel like that was a good spread. Murdock being the big single damage dealer, Twin Blast being the similar to Belica, but still a carry type of character, and then Belica having the 3-round burst autos. So what we did is we went in there, got their base power that they get from leveling up to 18. One thing you initially see here is Belica, for leveling up to 18, only comes out with 43 free physical power before you build any items, whereas all the carries generally get to this 114 to 118 mark, so they do get a lot of extra physical power for leveling up that Belica does not get. That's another thing that kind of keeps this insane auto attack scaling in check, but that is beside the point. What we went in here and did is we looked at power built. So we started out with their base physical power that they get just from leveling, then added 40 power each time, as you see right here. This is power built as we go down. So if you've got 80 physical power built on Belica, you're going to have 123 total physical power at the end of the game. That's just how it goes. Realistically, this could go further. You could build up to 300. You'll see some of the build comparisons here at the end where we do get over 350 physical power built on Belica. So this is just kind of this is like at the 5-ish items in point on these heroes. So like about 5 items in on Twin Blast, you should have over 300 power. Same thing with Murdock, same thing with any carry for the most part. Whereas on Belica, you're going to have a little bit less because she gets less power from scaling. So we went in, we did that, and then we looked at the auto attack damage per cycle, which of course is based on this formula right here for each of these heroes, and then calculating it based off of their physical power, which fits right there in the percent slot of each of these. So you see right here, we've got 21 damage plus 75% of her physical power times 3 because it is a 3-round burst. Of course, this is raw damage prior to armor. So that's what we did. Calculated them all out here, and you can quickly see that the two carries are very similar to each other, which makes sense. They have a similar formula, similar scaling, similar base power, and they come out to right around this number of, if you've got 200 power built, they're going to have right under 350 pre-armor mitigation damage per auto attack cycle. Of course, Twin Blast has to go through armor 2 times because it's a 2-shot cycle, versus Murdock only having to go through 1, but still very similar. And then you take a look at Belica, and it is a stark difference, right? 75% scaling times 3 is clearly a lot more than 45% times 2 or just base 90. So you can see that even though this is only 5 items in-ish, or 100 power short of you'll probably be if you get to a really long game, she is already dealing near double the pre-mitigated damage of any carry. So here's what we did. We made a graph for this. because these numbers are crazy and you need to be able to visualize this. And then we also went ahead and crunched additional numbers for Drongo and Howitzer because I felt like just a 3 hero sample wasn't quite enough. So we threw Drongo in the mix. He's very similar to the other carries scaling with only 85% physical scaling, but the similar power number. And then I wanted to get a mage in there other than Belica, so we threw Howie in here just to see what do other mages get as far as scaling, which is very weak, 56 plus 60%. And then we use the same formula here where we build this amount of power. So what does this look like in the graph? What does this graph tell us? So this graph is damage throughout the game pre-armor. So this is the raw damage per auto attack cycle pre-mitigation on the y-axis, and on the x-axis we have built physical power. So this is not including the power that they get, right? This is not, I mean, this is including the power that they get, but we're looking at the scale of built physical power to equalize the playing field, because you could build 200 physical power on Belica, or you could build 200 physical power on Twin Blast, and you will have a different power number, but it still takes the same amount of resources to build that 200 physical power. So let's take a look at this. Like I said, built physical power right here, 0 to 200. We could have extended this out to 300, 350, because that's realistically what you're looking at in a very late game scenario on certain builds, but this is good enough to give us an idea of what's going on. And you can quickly see what's happening here. We've got Twin Blast, Murdock, and Drongo, all of these 3 lines that are kind of overlapping because they are grouped so tightly. Murdock, you know, Drongo's the green one, and Twin Blast is the dotted red one. All right here, all carries are going to have this similar path. Sparrow included, Kira included, they're all going to be right here. As you go throughout the game, you gain more damage, and they're all very tight to each other. Then you see here at the bottom, we've got Howitzer, of course, worse scaling overall. If you build 200 physical power on Howitzer, that scaling does not carry you up to as insane of a damage number as you're going to get on a carry. That is self-explanatory because he is a mid laner or a mage like Belica. But then, of course, you see this blue line standing out as Belica, clearly outperforming any of the carries by a massive margin. Getting to that late game scenario, it is going to be well over double the auto attack damage per cycle pre-armor. Now that is the key here, pre-armor. Because her autos have to go through armor 3 times, that does lead to some issues. So we went in after doing these calculations, seeing these insane numbers, and we wanted to see what this means as far as how you should be building Belica. What kind of damage does this actually produce? Because we know we've seen Murdock's hit 1000 damage crits. Belica, can she get to that level? Can she deal that kind of damage? So we went into the practice mode, and we first looked at a full crit Belica build. So this is the standard full power Belica build that you would get from doing this build right here, where you see Plasma Blade to get you extra crit. You have the combination of Resolution and Mind Razor for massive physical power, and you do get to 100% crit with Solaris and the likes. And we can see that the damage numbers are not insane. 140-ish per shot times 3 is still very good damage, but this is a very heavily armored target in this 110 armor steel, so that can cause problems for getting that damage out. If we look over onto Murdock, we can see with the same build, which again, this is not a build you would probably ever build on Murdock, but same build just for farity's sake. And we put the same build together, and we hit this steel with these crits on the same Murdock build at 100% crit, big power. We see it's right around the same damage. Now Murdock deals that damage all in one go, that 450-ish damage all in one go, whereas Belica's deals it in 3 shots, but it's really like, it's within 15 damage of each other per auto attack cycle, despite the fact that if we look right here, Belica should be dealing about double. In reality, after the triple armor mitigation that has to go through her 3-round burst autos, it comes out to right around the same. So yes, on paper, Belica is extraordinarily overpowered from an auto attack scaling standpoint, getting to about double the potential pre-armor damage, when it comes to the armor standpoint, she really does just about the same on a build per build basis. Building Murdock with the same items that you would build Belica at carry, you get the same-ish damage numbers, very close and comparable. So that made me think, well, we've got to come up with something better because this scaling is too good to ignore. What should you be building on Belica to get that damage through? So first off, we went with a kind of Belica hybrid crit build, where you're still building Plasma Blade. You're getting to 80%-ish crit after you stack Plasma Blade up, but you're picking up extra penetration in the form of Viper and Sky Splitter for extra damage. Let's pull this up here, see if I can get this up. Yep. So you're picking up Sky Splitter, you're picking up Viper. You're still doing good crits because you have Demolisher and Vank. Getting up to not quite attack speed cap, 240% attack speed cap, but still solid attack speed, resolution. We threw Typhoon on here, but you could easily throw a carry crest on here as well. And you can see that this damage is significant. This is once you stack that Viper up with a couple burst, this is significantly more damage than the full crit build because you have that Sky Splitter damage, and because you have a lot of pin behind it. It takes this steel to get to like close to a third health before you're even dealing less damage from Sky Splitter than you were dealing on the full crit build. So definitely can recommend this build, or one very similar to this one, where you're still getting high crit, but you're picking up extra pin in the form of Viper and Sky Splitter for huge on-hit procs, which Belica does benefit from greatly. But then, even beyond that, what I would actually recommend as the best potential Belica build to take advantage of this insane scaling that she's got is this build right here, where we're looking at a essentially full flat pin build with Deathstalker and Viper and resolution. We've even picked up the Rogue's Crest in the flat pin crest, taking the Cleanse Witchstalker as our crest item. And you can see we get up to 38 flat pin, but you've got to keep in mind we've got both Deathstalker and Viper on here, which is shredding an insane amount of armor off of this steel. So even though we don't have the big crit numbers, we only have 20% crit coming from Vanquisher, you can see that the non-crit strike hits here are actually dealing more damage, 160, 170. When steel starts getting low, it's closer to 130, 140. These non-critical strikes are actually dealing more damage than we were dealing with our full 100% Imperator crit build on Belica, because armor is making such a big difference. So, long story short, if you actually want to play carry Belica, which I can for sure recommend right now, you've got to build as much pin as possible to get through armor, because having to deal with armor times 3 cuts your damage down a lot. It sounds good in theory to build Imperator, and of course Imperator always gives you big auto attack bonus damage because of the percent bonus that you get from it, especially if you're 100% crit. But in these cases, you can see from this flat pin build, we're actually dealing more damage with our non-critical strikes than we were on the full max power Imperator crit build Belica, which is just absurd. It just shows you how important armor is and how important pin is, and taking both Deathstalker and Viper allows you to absolutely destroy tank targets pin plus Sky Splitter to get extra health damage. The flat pin Belica build is the way to go if you want to play her at carry. You've seen people build it plenty of times for sure on Twin Blast. I've enjoyed it on Twin Blast. Same principle applies with him, where he's got to go through armor twice, so the maximum pin makes sense, but the Viper Deathstalker build seems like the way to go with Belica. Hope this helps you guys out. Like I said, this spreadsheet here, available in the description if you want to take a look at it for yourself. Let me know what you think about Belica carry. These numbers are really hard to argue with, and I think this testing was pretty conclusive on how to actually get the most out of Belica carry, as far as how does her pre-mitigation damage actually translate to in-game damage. And long story short, you got to build a lot of pin to get the best out of it. And I really like the Deathstalker Viper combo for getting through that armor. Of course, Demolisher's still good. Perforator is in this flat pin build, of course, because it's just trying to get as much pin as possible. That's how you get the damage out on Belica. But let me know what you guys think. Do you run Belica carry? Do you like Belica carry? Do you think she's overpowered? I came into this spreadsheet assuming she was grossly overpowered, and even after crunching these numbers, I still hold that conclusion, but I understand that through the combination of her getting less physical power from leveling and her having to go through armor 3 times, this absurd pre-damage mitigation number and this graph showing a ridiculously higher peak than you get from any other carry is actually somewhat balanced right now because of how tanks function and how it is hard to get through armor 3 times compared to Howie compared to Murdock, who only has to get through it 1 time. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you think about Belica. Let me know what other spreadsheets you guys would like to see. I'm happy to do this numbers crunching for you. Let me know what other ideas you have as far as investigating the numbers of this game and trying to figure out how we can build and improve together. Come out to the live streams and have fun with us. We're running Pred every night and having a good time. And look forward to the 400 subscriber special series coming hopefully sometime next week if I can get it all cut together in time. And thanks for stopping by. Keep enjoying Pred, man. It's a great game. Looking forward to version 1.4, or 1.5, I should say, with the introduction of Wukong. That's going to be an exciting one. And we will catch y'all in the next one, man. Just keep enjoying Pred, man.